Where them Catholics at? Yeah. Yo, where them Catholics at? Man, what's the matter with these bishops?
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's the Catholic Convert Show, and it's finally Friday. So that means you've got the next 2 days where you don't have to listen to me insult your eardrums and insult Ed about his age. But in the meantime, we're still here for it. Ed, how you doing, brother?
Doing great. Doing great. You sent that South Carolina cloudiness up our way, so it's here now.
Oh, we still got it. I didn't send it nowhere. It just spread.
It just spread. We'll take it though. I got spoiled this week. Every day was gorgeous, so we'll take the clouds today.
Yeah, I think the gorgeous days ahead are going to be subjective. Oh, look how gorgeous it is outside. It's gray and rainy, and it's going to be subjective.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I probably have a good idea of how you're going to answer this, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How bad are you about seeing a book, even though you've got 40 you haven't read yet, and then buying a new one and then reading that one immediately, but then still neglecting the other 40 you've got on your to read list?
Oh, it happens all the time, except that when I buy that new book, I feel guilty about the ones I haven't read. So the new book goes on the bottom of the pile. And before I can get to the one that's on the top of the pile, I see something else that I desperately need to order. So as long as I live, if I don't order any more books, and if I live to 163, I'll be cool. I'll get them all read. It'll be fine. No problem.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. My wife loves going to Barnes & Noble, and she likes getting those. I can't do this, by the way. I would get aggravated if it didn't work out. She gets these. They're called Blind Date with a Book.
Oh.
Have you ever seen those?
No, I mean, I can kind of guess what it is, but go ahead. No.
So what they do is they take like paper and they wrap the book so you can't see the cover. And then they write in pen on the thing a very vague, ambiguous description, like poorly described thing of the book, right? Yeah. Like description of the book. And my wife will get those and be like, I'll try this one. And she'll go and pay for it. She'll take it home and she'll be like, I've already got this one. Or she'll be like, oh, I tried to read it and it was terrible. Every now and then she catches like that, that golden BB, I guess you could call it. And it's like a great book. And then she's like, now I'm hooked on this new author. I couldn't do that. I like, okay, this is the book. I read the thing. I saw the author. I looked up the author's reviews. And depending, like, even if the author reviews are all negative, if they're from the kind of people or they contain the kind of language of people that would normally hate me, then I'll get the book. Like, take Joshua Lysek and I can't pronounce his last name correctly. Jack Posobiec.
Oh yeah.
Got that. They've got that book, Unhumans, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at all the reviews that are bad on that book, the language used is, this guy's literally Hitler. Okay, guess what? I'm reading that book now because only morons, he's literally Hitler and that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So that's kind of what I do when I read the book or read the reviews for a book before I get it. But I always go straight to like the religious section in Barnes & Noble. If I'm not going to like the mystery and thriller section, because I still love, like Jack Carr and Vince Flynn and all this other Tom Clancy kind of stuff. But I go over there and man, you really got to sort through it because everything, you've got the weird Max Lucado theology crap and you're like, okay, not that. And then you have to, and none of the titles, like I need Catholic book publishers or any publishers that publishes a Catholic book. They need to put like on the spine a crucifix just so we know, okay, that one, right?
Yeah.
Or like the Chi Rho Like, just so that way we know that it's not going to be some trash.
Yeah.
But I'm going through and I found this book by, oh, crap, what's his name? His name is Father Bryce something or another. Hold on.
While you're looking for it, do you have Ollie's down there in South Carolina?
We have one, Father Bryce Lundgren.
Oh, Father Bryce Lundgren. I've heard his name before. I was going to say because when you go to Ollie's, they have a great book section, and Max Licado's all over it. But that tells you how what his books are worth, because they're in Ollie's for $1.99.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
This is Father Bryce Lundgren with no D, so it's not like related to Dolph.
Yes.
But he has this book called The Catholic Cowboy Way.
Okay.
And I went, you know what? It was $15. I picked it up. And then I know I'm kind of a freak for doing this, but whenever I buy the physical copy of a book, I have to buy the Kindle copy. And then I have to also buy the audio version because I don't always carry the book with me. So if I'm riding around with my wife or whatever, and she goes inside a store, I don't want to go in there because it's not my kind of store, which is pretty much any store. I can pull out my phone, open up Kindle, and pick up where I left off. Right?
Yeah.
And I could do the same thing if I'm driving alone. I can just hit Audible and listen to the book. So if you're an author out there and you have a Kindle version, if you have an Audible or audiobook version, and I buy your physical book, just know you're getting 3 sales from me because that's just the way I do it. I buy every book 3 times.
I do the same thing, but I even take it a step further. I get the physical book, I get the Kindle version, I get the audiobook, and then I pay the extra to have the author come and read it to me at bedtime and then tuck me in. And I'm telling you, it's worth every penny. It's really the way to go.
Depending on the author, I'm sure.
Yeah, depending on the author.
All right. Yeah.
I love physical books. I mean, maybe it has something to do with me being old, but I just love having it. Like there are rare occasions where I'll get a Kindle version and then I wind up usually going back and getting the physical copy. I just something about having that.
Yeah, look, like if I'm at home, I'll never be listening to a book unless I'm like outside working. If I'm at home, I'm never reading a book on Kindle. I have the physical book, but the others are just for when I'm doing something where driving where it would kill me. That's the audio book, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm out and about and I don't carry a book in my car, I pull out my phone and I can read there.
Sure.
It's more like the on the go kind of things.
Yeah.
Versus if I'm at home, I can't stand reading on a screen.
Oh yeah.
But like I was saying, I found this book. It's called The Catholic Cowboy Way, and I was very curious, so I started going through it. It's not a bad book so far. I'm about 3 chapters in, and one of the chapters, as I was skimming, it got me thinking about, our Lord hated hypocrisy.
True.
Right? So does everybody else. But of course, we're always tempted by it every single day. Right? And it's always in front of us. There's this mask or a facade that the world wants us to wear. You have to dress like this. You have to say this stupid thing, or you have to join in on this trend or whatever. Pretty much it's anything. They want you to be anything and put on whatever mask it is, as long as it portrays you as the opposite of what God has created you to be. Right. Yeah. But the true path to freedom in the realm of the Catholic Church, which is the ultimate realm, it lies in authenticity, right? And this is where life starts. It doesn't end there, though, obviously. You have Christ. He's the Alpha the Omega, the beginning and the end. He's the way, the truth, and the life. And in following him authentically, we find ourselves.
Mhm.
Now, I don't mean that, oh, we just worship however we want, right? But of all of the virtues that someone could embody, I would say holiness and courage stand out the most, right? So, I mean that in the way of being fully the person that God created you to be without giving a single crap about whether or not the world is going to approve.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, it kind of reminds me of John Wayne, right?
Mm.
You know, courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. He did not say it in that voice, but I don't think anybody can emulate his voice. But it's bravery in the face of fear.
Sure.
Because courage isn't the absence of fear, right?
No.
But our mission every single day is to follow what our Lord said when he said over and over again, do not be afraid. You know, but look, fear is a real component in our
Mhm.
lives, you know, and perfect love, which is God's love, casts out all fear if you let it.
Mhm.
You know, knowledge is powerful, you know, and understanding that how the human person works is key so that we can properly orientate ourselves and properly operate ourselves.
Mhm.
But I think fear and being afraid gets a lot more credit than it's due, especially when people worry about being canceled, or like I talked about in one of my first articles on the Catholic convert, the cost of conversion, right? You've got people who are lifelong Protestants. They come from Protestant backgrounds. They come from, or they are Protestant ministers. And they, when they go to convert, you know, like, oh man, I've been talking to these people for 30 years in front of a pulpit. And now I'm leaving this and becoming a Catholic.
Mm.
You know, there's a lot of fear because one, you're not getting paid to be a Catholic. You're getting paid to be a Baptist minister, probably.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least some kind of stipend. And yeah, sure,
Mhm.
Catholic priests make some money, but you're not joining the seminary. You're converting to Catholicism. And that's what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
But our Lord commanded us not to be afraid. And emotions are not meant to do all of our thinking. Properly ordered emotions inform the intellect, and then we can make the right decision. But for the most part, when emotions rise, we go wherever we're being led, right? And it leads to uneasy or just not even uneasy, but negative implications in our lives. You know, and if emotions do all of our thinking for us, we're basically, you know, putting a blindfold on, getting behind the wheel of a car and going down the highway trying to use the force. You know.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that, you know, emotion is good or bad. It's neither. It's neutral, right? It's what we do with them that matters. And fear is an emotion. But we have to ask, does this fear measure up to the facts of reality? Because it's kind of, it can be uncomfortable sometimes. And I see this in a lot of people. Well, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to upset my father. I don't want to upset my wife or my, you know, my parents or my peers when I say I'm coming to the Catholic Church. Right.
Mhm.
But is that fear backed by reality? Yeah, probably. But is it the entirety of reality? right? Because the devil is very happy to sell us partial truths,
Sure.
right? Sure, they are going to maybe get upset, especially if you come like from an area like I do, where it's thick Protestant culture, right? But the rest of the picture, the rest of that truth is that their judgments, their, you know, their actions of casting you out or disowning you or whatever don't matter, because you're simply following what God wants you to do.
Yeah.
They need to fix themselves. And yes, maybe they'll never talk to you again. Okay. Are you willing to deal with that? Because you're following the fullness of the truth. It's just it's just one little piece of reality. Like, I'm afraid of, falling out with my family because I come to the Catholic Church. Are you afraid of falling out with God because you don't? Because that's the other side of it. But we only focus on this stuff right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you got to stand up to that bullying side of it. It's like with St. Ignatius of Loyola said, there's no beast so wild on the face of the earth as the enemy of human nature in following out his damnable intention with so great malice. Now, there's no doubt that the devil's scary and he leads us to hell. But that doesn't mean we have to be afraid of the punishments here on this earth. And if you truly have faith, you change the what if of fear to even if of faith. But I see so many people try to soften the way that they're perceived when they say, no, abortion is murder when they're with their Catholic peers.
Mm-hmm.
But then you say, well, the Bible says this, but I understand what your point of view is. No, just say it. Well, if I say that, they're going to cancel me. Then get canceled.
Yeah.
Speak the truth. I don't know. We're sometimes hypocrites to ourselves. We lie to ourselves and say, I am hardcore, super zealot Catholic. And then when you get in public, you just do everything you can to be the gray man and kind of blend in.
Yeah.
It's when the going gets tough that, I'll make compromises. Okay.
Yeah. I'm very well known for saying to people, and this has to do with any kind of issue they're going through. My question to them always is, well, what's the worst that can happen? Especially when I see someone that's getting very worked up and very upset and very concerned about something, I say, well, what's the worst that can happen? And because typically when they go through the list of the worst that can happen, it's really not all that terrible. It's survivable. It's something that it could be difficult, but you'll get through it. And you can certainly use that same thing in your faith too. Well, what's the worst that can happen? I think, because you think about it, if you were an apostle and you were asking yourself that question, what's the worst that could happen? I could be boiled in oil. I could be beheaded. I could be flayed. I could be crucified, a million different things. And yet they went through and did what Christ had asked them to do. And like you're saying, it should be the same for us. Certainly, I'm not saying it's completely out of the realm of possibility, but chances are anyone listening to this show is not going to be boiled in oil or crucified for their belief. So whatever it is that you're being asked to do, or that you should do because you are a Christian, because you are a Catholic, do it, because, still the glory that awaits you after all is said and done is going to far outweigh any difficulties you go through, or even, there's victory over death. if you're looking at death being the worst possible outcome, okay, well, there's something that even far outweighs that, which is glorious and wonderful. And I have to go back a little bit because, when you first said the blind date with a book, it didn't ring a bell. But as you were describing it, I remember, and this is very embarrassing, but I do have to admit it, that I did see a Hallmark movie that was based on the blind date with a book. So I need to clear that up. So I was very familiar with the concept. And yes, I do occasionally watch Hallmark movies. So let's just.
I don't care what anybody says. I will sit and watch Hallmark movies during Christmas.
Oh, good. Okay.
Because look, it's about the only damn time you can watch something on network television that's not just crap, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
sure, it's cheesy, it's terrible acting. Every single one of them has the same plot line.
Yeah.
Yes, I know, because I've written romance novels as a ghostwriter for people who follow the friggin' Hallmark movie like arc, right? They're all the same.
Yeah, every Hallmark one is the same. There's a small town. One person stays home. The other one goes out into the big world and makes their fortune and their fame. And for some reason has to come back to their little town of their origins, sees that person.
And then they meet and then they see the guy. Oh, there's a great YouTube series. There's a family that does these spoofs of.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they do the spoofs of
I'll have to see that.
Hallmark movies. I
Yeah,
can't remember the name. Somebody can comment on this and leave the name, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
The guy's like, is that you, Sally Vanderflugen? She's like,
Exactly.
yeah, I'm a big New York executive now. What do you do? He goes, oh, I chop down trees for homeless dogs or something stupid, right? And she's like, oh, he's broke. And then no, he actually invented the internet or something dumb.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, he's rich. I love him now.
Yeah.
It's always the same. But no, what you were talking about with, when you ask what's the worst that can happen, I'm not one. I hate stoicism. I hate the Stoics because all of the Stoics are, they expect everybody to just be, this is fine, no matter what it is, and it leaves out a critical element of, okay, it's not fine. It
it's not
will
fine,
be in the very, very end because we've got a book with some spoilers in it. But I don't like, just accept the decline and don't react. I don't like any of that crap.
No.
But I will say there's a quote from Seneca that you reminded me of, and it's that we suffer far more in our imaginations than we do in reality.
I think that's true.
And we talked about this on the show yesterday. When we make a bigger deal about something, or we trade a mountain that we fought for just so we can climb a hill.
Yeah.
Right. Or this huge battle ahead of us. Like, it's like that meme, God, stop giving me your hardest battles. And he's like, bro, all you have to do is go to bed earlier. You're like, literally stop staying up all night and you'll be fine. We make these big deals out of stuff. Now I get it. Maybe I'm a little sociopathic, because I've had people that I spent 20 odd years with in my life that are blood relatives that I haven't spoken to in almost a decade, simply because they're not compatible with peace in my life. And I don't need that drama. And they can stay the 45-minute drive away and never call me because I'm not calling them. They can never visit because I'm not visiting them. And I'm going to be completely fine with it. Maybe that's sociopathic. So maybe I'm a bad example of this. But when I've talked to other people who were in the process of converting to the church, it's always, when it comes to their hesitation, it is not about, most of the time, it's not about, I'm not sure if I believe everything is true. It's, I have no idea how my family is going to take this.
Sure.
I have no idea how my Baptist minister dad is going to handle it. Or, my mom, who is a Presbyterian minister. I don't know how she's going to handle it when she realizes that I am of the understanding that she's not ordained.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've been a preacher for 20 years and we're kind of like the first family of this small town because everybody knows, Pastor William and his wife Jane and their 3.5 average kids. Now I'm going to lose that social element of it. I'm going to lose I'm going to cause some kind of rift in my family because of this. Well, I hate to break this to you, but if that happens, it's all part of the plan because Christ said that he didn't come to bring peace. He came to bring a sword, and that sword is truth, and that truth would divide families.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably going to happen. I've got a couple of friends who are on the cusp of converting to Catholicism, and it's insane how almost identical their hesitancies are, and it involves their spouse.
Sure.
Well, I don't know how she's going to take this because she's fully against me not ever using birth control. I don't know how she's going to take this because she's the daughter of a preacher. I don't know how she's going to take this because she had a bad experience with a Catholic grandmother or at a Catholic school or whatever. But it's all like, I'm so concerned about how my wife is going to take this.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm like a unicorn. I got very lucky and it was really easy. I married a cradle Catholic who was just a lapsed Catholic. And when I decided, all right, everybody's going to church now, she was like, oh, cool. All right. And that was it. And I told her, hey, you're going to RCIA now, so you can get confirmed in First Communion. She goes, okay. And that was it.
Yeah.
But I get that there's the hesitancy there because who wants to cause strife in their own families? Who wants to, start arguments with their wife? I don't think there's anything more exhausting than either of those things.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why I've gone out of my way to make sure it doesn't happen with me. But at the same time, you're looking at it from only one partial piece of the picture.
Yeah.
Well, my wife will be upset. My dad will be upset. My peers and yada, yada, yada will be upset. But you're leaving out like the important guy. You're leaving out the guy, the big guy with a big G in front of his name. The big JC. You're missing him.
Yeah.
And we're too concerned about the little stuff, but we're not looking at the fullness of the truth. And the reason we suffer that much in our imagination, oh, she's going to be mad, he's going to be this, or they're going to disown me or whatever. It's the devil loving to make you dwell on those partial truths.
Yeah.
Oh, are you sure you're supposed to honor your mother and father? Remember, God said that. Are you sure that you want to come into the fullness of the Catholic Church? Because your mother and father wouldn't like that. It sounds very, manipulative, right? And that's what you start thinking about.
Yeah. There's a lot of dangers that are involved when you combine relationships and religion. And you mentioned one there, which is something that we see all the time. People that have found the trueness, the fullness of the faith, and they find it within the Catholic Church, and they're concerned. Well, how is my family going to react if I say I'm converting to Catholicism, even though I've spent a year researching it, investigating it, learning about it, talking to priests, talking to other Catholics, just going on and on about like how they came to the conclusion that they should be Catholic. And then you have the opposite side of the coin, people who don't take it very seriously, their faith when it comes to relationship. And there's a show I watch a lot of stuff on TLC, and it's garbage TV, but I watch it because it's a way of keeping like an eye on the pulse of the nation and like where we are going as far as our level of depravity, because so many of their shows that are involved in relationships are just become more and more perverse as time goes on. But one they have on now is called Forbidden Love. And they call it that because it's people who are converting so that they can marry someone. So these are people who are not taking the faith seriously whatsoever. In this season, there's a Catholic girl who's giving up her Catholic faith to marry a Muslim. There's a Catholic girl who's giving up her Catholic faith to marry a Jew, because these two gentlemen say, you have to become Jew, you have to become a Muslim if we're going to be married. Now, so they're putting this relationship with this man above their relationship with Christ. There's another one. There's a gentleman who is, his father is actually a pastor of, I think he's a Southern Baptist. And this guy is going to become a Muslim because he's in love with this girl who insists that he become Muslim. So, and that bothers me to such an amazing degree, because these are people who don't take their faith seriously in any way, shape, or form. If you're going to change your religion simply to please your potential spouse, I mean, I'd love to see the statistics on how many of these marriages survive, because I'm assuming the numbers are dreadfully low. Because if you're going to change religion simply so you can marry somebody, and then and you're willing to raise future children in a faith you don't have any belief in whatsoever, simply because you wanted to marry somebody, I don't think that's going to end well for anybody, not for the couple, not for the children. So you've got that too. So you're talking about people who are sweating the little things, like they've decided Catholicism is the way to go, and they're afraid of, well, how do I tell mom and dad? How do I tell Aunt Becky? How do I tell my uncle who's a minister at such and such a church? Even though they know that they're heading towards the truth. And then you've got these other people who have such little concern with their faith that they're willing to sign a document and convert to basically anything, just simply to get married, or because they're afraid they're going to lose this man or that woman or whatever. So there's so much that can go wrong with faith and relationships. I always say you have to find somebody of the same faith. I know a couple who I've known them for 40 plus years, and when they were about to get married, she's a Catholic, he's Jewish, and they decided, and I would say, listen, you really kind of have to talk about, well, what are you going to do about your kids? How are you going to raise kids? What are you going to do? And we'll figure it out. Well, their kids are now 26 and 22 or 23. And yeah, they figured it out. They just don't practice any religion whatsoever. So what I mean, and that's not the first time I've heard that story. But
that was literally the case with my kids until I decided to change things.
Exactly, right. And this is this is what happens all too often. That's why if you look at the numbers, you see the number of people who believe in God in this country is going down year by year by year, because the adults are not taking the faith seriously. And so how do you expect the next generation to?
Yeah. And I don't like the idea of giving up your faith for someone else. I'm going to go back to that book, The Catholic Cowboy Way, because I remember a section in there. He said, cowboys don't quit. They just die. And Jesus himself is like the original cowboy. Right? Quitting wasn't in his vocabulary.
Yeah.
If you just meditate on the sorrowful mysteries of the rosary and walk through the Lord's Passion to taste that level of perseverance and determination, he had a pretty cowboy attitude about it, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's no quit.
Yeah.
And in the book, he talks about, he goes, you know, Catholic cowboys would rather die than abandon ship. You know,
Sure.
there's pride in riding for Christ. There's purpose in fulfilling the Father's will, even if that were to require martyrdom.
Yeah.
Well, you just talked about that. Chances are you're not going to be martyred if you're in a first world country,
Sure.
at least for now. You know, we don't know what's
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
on with the wild immigration stuff, but for now, for the most part, the odds are still in your favor that you're not going to be martyred for being Catholic,
Mhm.
you know. But it's okay though. But I mean, the word martyr means witness.
Mhm.
Now, in the Catholic Church today, we could use a few more martyrs, people who witness to their love of Christ by their very lives. But what I like, you know, I listen to all kinds of music, but this kind, you know, when we're talking about, you know, suffering more in imagination than we do in reality, it does remind me of that Tim McGraw song. There's it's like the cowboy in me, right? There's a
Yeah.
line in there. It says, we ride and never worry about the fall. Well, if you go into these situations where, how am I going to tell my parents? How am I going to tell my spouse? How am I going to tell my friends and peers about I'm converting and coming into the Catholic faith? Well, if that's your focus, you're basically duping yourself. You know, if you
Mhm.
go into a battle thinking you're just going to lose, well, then you're going to lose, right? The way that you even think about it and approach it affects how you feel, and it affects the real outcomes. You know, if I walk into a room thinking I've got bad news to give my wife, because I don't know, I would never do this because I'm smarter than this. But let's say I was an idiot for a few minutes and I placed I don't know, a bet on a horse and at the Kentucky Derby and it lost. And guess what? We've got to go live in a tent now.
Mhm.
If I know this is a very extreme example, and there's probably zero instances or approaches I could make in a situation where she wouldn't shoot me. But, but okay, let's say you made a mistake with someone and they don't know it yet, and you go and you walk up and you're immediately on the defense, immediately on, you know, guard when you try to talk to this person about it. You're setting it up to become a confrontation that it just might not be.
Yeah.
But also, if it is, nobody said this thing was easy. Nobody said following Christ was going to be a highway full of roses. Most of the time, you're driving next to a 30-year-old abandoned chicken farm, and you've got petrified chicken crap caked along the highway, right? It stinks. It's horrible. It's hot, and it sucks. But at the end of the road, there's that great promise that we're all looking forward to.
Mhm.
I guess the whole point of me even bringing this up is if you are afraid of the worldly implication of converting to the Catholic faith or reverting to the Catholic faith, because, well, you know what? After I left the church or before I even came into the church, I talked so much crap about Catholics and da 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 da. Now I'm just worried everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, you're a hypocrite because you said all these bad things about it, and now you're going back." And that doesn't affect you. And chances are people are thinking about you far less than you think they are because you're not as important in their lives as you make yourself to be.
Yeah.
And they're probably not going to care. And if they do care, well, then that's their problem.
Yeah.
You can cowboy up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting because in the way that you had been talking about people who are afraid to tell people family members that they're entering the Catholic Church. Um, you know, these are people who are putting their relationship with mom, dad, Aunt Sally, brother Billy, or whatever ahead of their relationship with Christ. Just in the same way that in the examples I gave of people leaving the faith to be with somebody specific, you're putting your relationship with that one individual person above your relationship with Christ. And either one of those, the end result is the same. You're putting yourself in a very, very precarious situation as far as your salvation is concerned. And that's Christ himself will tell you that. I mean, yeah, he loves us all. He loves everybody. He loves your mom and dad, everything, but he will tell you your relationship with him has to take precedent over your relationship with every single other person, your spouse, your children, everyone, your parents. Christ comes first. And so regardless of why you're doing it and in what manner you're doing it, whether it's you're afraid to tell people you're going to join the church, you're considering joining the church, or whether it's you're willing to leave the church just to be with somebody, it's the same. It's the end result is the same. If you're going to keep yourself out of Christ's church simply because you don't want to upset or offend the people around you, I feel badly for you because you're making a very, very bad decision. I mean, listen, there are decisions in this world that are extremely difficult to make, but they are decisions that have to be made. And I think this is certainly qualifies as one of those. Yeah. And if somebody says to you, you join that church, I'm not going to talk to you ever again. I have friends over in my parish, gentlemen who are in my men's group who have that exact situation. They have brothers or sisters or other family members who have not spoken to them since they joined the church. And I say to them, listen, I don't feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for them because they're missing out. They've turned their back on someone who is embracing Christ. They're making a mistake. You didn't make the mistake. Yeah, I feel for my friends too, because it hurts to lose somebody that's close to you. It certainly does, especially to lose them in that manner, where they still live 3 miles down the road, but you haven't spoken to them in 7 years. I mean, that's terrible. You see them from a distance when you're in the Piggly Wiggly or wherever. You see them 3 aisles over, and you're not even going to bother to go and talk to them because they won't speak to you. That's terrible, but it's still not as bad as the alternative, which is to, keep that relationship with them going and ignore your relationship with Christ. There are a lot of difficult decisions you got to make in this life, right?
Yeah, and I think it's the avoidance of, or the desire to avoid those difficult decisions that comes down to what, and I can't remember. There's a theologian that had coined the term, and I can't think of his name, so I'm not going to mention him. I'm going to blatantly steal it. But he called a liberalized religion, and I don't mean liberalized as in, political party liberalized, but liberalized religion is pretty much an ice your own cupcake approach to faith. It's synchronism, and we've talked about that on the show before, where you're adopting all of these different little aspects of other faiths to be like, I like this from Buddha, I like this from Krishna, I like this from what's his name, Joseph Smith, I like this from Jesus, and I like this from Wayne Gretzky. And you
that well-known theologian Wayne Gretzky.
Well-known theologian Wayne Gretzky. And you try to mold this amalgamation of different theological points to fit a view that's convenient for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I see when I hear about people. Well, I grew up Catholic, but I converted to Judaism when I married my husband, or even the reverse. I grew up Jewish, but I converted to Catholicism when I married my husband.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, I have a bias of those two situations.
Sure.
It's much better to convert to Catholicism from Judaism than the other way around.
Sure is.
But just the very idea of the casualness about it, as in the only reason I became Catholic was because of my husband, then you're still doing it wrong.
Exactly.
And the only reason I converted from the faith that my family has been for 1,000 years was because I met someone new. It's okay, yeah, you're halfway there, maybe a quarter of the way there when you're converting to Catholicism simply because of, I'm doing it because I'm marrying a Catholic guy or a Catholic woman or whatever.
Mm.
But it is borderline heretical. Well, yeah, I got baptized and had communion and all this other. When you don't believe, it's not even borderline heretical. That's heretical.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say it's not borderline at all, and that's what drives me crazy when I see these shows.
Coming into the full communion of it. Okay, I don't. Okay, not converting itself, because conversion is something internal. I'm saying actually coming into full communion with the church. You're receiving the sacraments when you don't really believe. That's the issue. That's the heretical side. But just the conversion part. Like, I converted to Catholicism, like, I don't know, 15 months before I was ever received a sacrament.
Yeah.
Right. So just on that, well, I started going to mass. Why? Because I'm dating a Catholic guy, and I don't even know if I believe it, but I'm willing to join the church just to say I do in front of the altar and get the pretty reception. Yeah.
It's not the magnanimous thing you're doing that you think it is, honestly.
Right. I think that's the thing that bugs me, is the very casual nature that people regard religion as a whole. They treat it like it's a lifestyle rather than an objective truth.
Yeah.
Christianity is not a lifestyle choice.
No.
But the icy Rome cupcake theology that they try to adopt is done simply for that reason, because they view it as a lifestyle choice, not as there is true and there is untrue. Well, if I'm going to be a weightlifter, that's a lifestyle choice. That means I get up at 3 a.m. like I used to, and I go to the gym at 3:30 and I'm there till 5. That's a lifestyle choice. Following Christ is not a lifestyle choice.
No.
You can be like, well, I'm a Christian, so I just go to church on Sunday and I do the potluck with the women's group, and I think we eat fish on Friday.
I do enjoy a good pot roast or a good potluck.
Yeah, and I have to put all these crosses on my car because it's the lifestyle. It's not a lifestyle.
Yeah,
but that's the way it gets. That's the way it gets treated, though.
Yeah, no,
it's the superficial side of the way they look at religion.
Yeah, I love when the guy that cuts you off on a highway and then flips you the bird and is cursing at you. When he gets in front of you, you see the "Honk If You Love Jesus" bumper sticker on the car.
Yeah. There's one bumper sticker that I see all the time here. You've probably seen them there in Jersey too. It's right there on the bumper. It says, "Do you follow Jesus this closely?"
Right. I've seen that a million times. Yeah.
A couple of times I want to just pull up to the window and be like, when they roll the window, be like, "Yes, I do," and then just leave them confused because they probably don't even realize what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But no, that's the disconnect that I think why there's so much strife between the secular community and the Christian community. And this is for whether you're a Protestant or a Catholic or Orthodox or whatever. It's people with a secular view of the world only regard faith as a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
Where the faithful understand it as true reality.
Mhm.
And so it leads to this very superficial view that we're constantly having to fight against. Like, well, you could just change your mind. No, I can't change my mind. I can't change my mind that God is real. That doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
It just makes me wrong. You can't, well, you could always just change your mind that women can't be priests and abortion, it should be illegal. Doesn't work like that, moron. But they don't get it. They don't see it as, well, it's just their personal choice. No, it's not a personal choice. It's an obligation, is what it is.
Yeah. This is one of the things that I love about Catholicism too, is that, and we'll get a lot of grief for this on social media, because if someone argues with
say it loud,
but someone will make an argument with you against you, is, they'll say, well, this what the church teaches this and it's wrong. The church believes that and it's wrong. And I'll say, well, no, it is 100% correct. Well, why is that? Because it's the Catholic Church and they have everything right. And they just get all up in arms because they say, well, every church gets some things wrong. I'm saying, well, and this is what I don't understand. And this is why I think some people are wishy-washy about their faith, because they'll say, well, if you think that the church that you are currently attending is getting some things wrong, why are you there? Why have you stopped searching for the truth? If you honestly believe that, and they'll say, well, that's just the way it is, because these are all man-made religions. And I'll say, well, mine's not made by man. Mine was instituted by Christ, and he's God. And they, no, he didn't do that. But this is the thing I'm saying, is like with Catholicism, if you truly, or if you're living your life as a Catholic is supposed to live your life, you do believe that every single thing that the Catholic Church teaches is true, just as much as you believe that one plus one is two. And nobody's going to get you to change your mind on that. But so many people that get angry with me, and they say, well, maybe the church has this wrong. Maybe they have that wrong. And I say, no, they don't. And they say, well, how do you know that? I say, because it's the Catholic Church. It's the church instituted by Christ. And they'll say, well, my church was instituted by Christ. And I don't agree with their theology on this, that, or the other thing. And then that's what I said. Why are you there? If you are sitting in a pew and you don't believe every single word that's coming out of that preacher's mouth, why are you there? Why are you not still searching? And they'll say, because any church I walk into, they're going to make some mistakes. And I say, not the church I walk into. They're not making any mistakes there.
Exactly.
And then they're saying, oh, you're just so righteous, and you're so, well,
you're
yeah, I'm trying
biased, and
you're biased, you're whatever.
You're part of a cult. Yeah, I am. You should join it.
It's the best cult in town.
Oh, I tell you, man, I've gotten to the point now. It's kind of like during COVID when people would try to, well, you're a murderer because you won't wear a mask. Yes, I am. I stopped even trying to argue with them.
Yeah.
You're a murderer. You worship Mary. Yes, I do. You're an idolater. Yes, I am. You're killing grandma. I ain't even like her. I like.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm
not even, yeah, she that woman
that old
put raisins in the chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, that's just wrong.
She got what she deserved.
Exactly. Or again, if I can.
It's got to the point I don't even argue with any of the wild accusations anymore. I'm just like, the Southerner in me comes out when it happens too, because here in the South, if you've ever heard it, when they say bless your heart,
yeah,
it's not nice. It sounds nice, but it's not nice. It's like, oh, look, it's disabled.
Exactly.
Bless its heart. That's the way I look at it. That it immediately comes out like, bless her poor heart.
Yeah.
And that's where it ends up being. But yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm just numb to it now, because it's kind of like when you get called a racist and a Nazi and an idolater and a Mary worshiper and a cultist so many times, it just loses its power.
It doesn't mean anything anymore.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
It's just to me, it's as common as when someone sees me out with me and my wife, and we've got somehow have all of our 9 children together, and they like, you know what causes that, don't you? Yeah, buddy, I've never heard that before. Or you got a ball team.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So original. I've never heard that. It's
No,
that common. It just stops having that effect. It's like when you tell the same
sure.
joke over and over and over again. Yeah, we got it. Okay, we laughed twice.
Yeah.
150 times. It's not funny anymore. You just
No,
ruined it. Thanks.
it's very true. Yeah, it's true. I don't know. I think if anything, I think what people need to take away from today's discussion is that we need to start taking our faith seriously. We really, really do.
You
This
grow some
whole
balls.
Absolutely, and especially for men. I say it all the time. You know, this country goes as Catholic men go. You've got to stand up. You've got to defend your family, your spouse, your church, your faith. You've got to do it. You can't be a part-time Catholic. You can't be a Catholic for an hour on Sundays. You've got to be a Catholic out there in the world because we desperately need it. And if you're not, why aren't you? Is it that you don't fully believe everything you're hearing on that, from the AMBO every Sunday? Is it that you don't believe what you were taught in Sunday school or CCD class or whatever it is? And if that's the case, then you got some thinking to do, and you've got some research to do, but do it, because just being ambivalent about your faith is not a way to live. It doesn't serve you well. It doesn't serve your family well. You've got to stand up, and you've got to be, and then you get all these people walking around. Oh, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. What the hell does that even
So
mean?
we're demons.
Yeah, exactly, right. Oh, there's a God up there, but I don't know. I'm just living my life. I'm just doing what I do.
The architect. What is that? What the weirdo Masons call it? It's the great architect.
The great architect, right? Yeah. It's amazing. It's just fascinating to me. And I say this all the time because it's good. It's part of the catechism that we're born with a knowledge of God and then a desire to get to know Him further and to love Him and to serve Him. And I see that happen when people actually open their hearts and their souls to it. And like I've been reading a lot about, I talked about it on X a week or two ago about the Native American black elk and how, he was a very spiritual Native American. And he spoke the way you would expect him to speak about Mother Earth and all these other things, and this great spirit in the sky and things. But eventually, after being exposed to Catholicism, became a Catholic and became a Catholic catechist and taught others about the faith. But if you go through his writings and you see the progression there, because like I said, God plants that seed in you while you're still in the womb, that little seed of knowledge of Him. But it's up to us to pursue that and to go further with it. And if you do that, it's going to lead you to Catholicism. And I'm sorry if anyone's offended by me saying that, but it will. If you truly, truly dig into who Christ is, what our faith is, you're going to wind up being a Catholic. And that's, I use Black Elk as the example of that. Here's someone who was basically, I guess, I don't know what kind of a religion you would call that the Native Americans followed. But he had a faith, but it just had to be developed. And it did develop as he studied and as he learned. And it brought him to the truth, then the fullness of the Catholic faith. So, and that would happen to anyone who truly put in the time and effort, I believe. Anyone who really did.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And it's a great way to end the show with 40 seconds left. So Well done, Ed. You did a great close there.
You know what? When you're a key grip as long as I am, you you learn the ins and outs of the industry. And I still gotta look that up. See what my actual responsibility.
See exactly what it is. But all right, that's the end of the show. We'll see you all Monday, or you'll see us because we're not looking at you. You're not that good looking. But you'll hear us and you'll see us all on Monday.
Absolutely.
Thanks. God bless and goodbye.
God bless you, everybody.